Hello and welcome to my video on the localization of English on the World Wide Web. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the advantages of using text analytics when trying to find out about regional uses of English. I'll use 3 countries that have English data on the web and find out whether they use English from the UK or US. The countries will be India, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. Here is a map of India, Pakistan and Sri Lanka in relation to one another. It's important that potential styles of English used in India, Pakistan and Sri Lanka are tailored for that region, for the sake of advertising or marketing campaigns, for example. English has become more important around the world as it's the lingua franca, an international language for science, trade and commerce, etc. That's why it's crucial that anyone targeting a foreign audience knows how to use English that appeals to them. Studies have shown that English in the India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka region has become the second language for most people. Second language learning, however, isn't easy due to it being learned consciously instead of the natural learning of your native tongue. One study has said countries such as India, Singapore, Malaysia and Philippines use a second official language in their governing system. Today, many countries are giving enormous importance to foreign language learning, especially learning the English language. Before I did this research, I predicted that English in India, Pakistan and Sri Lanka would be closer to UK English. This is because of the Commonwealth connection that all 3 countries had with the British Empire until they became independent by the 1950s. So I'm going to work out how close the English used on Indian, Pakistani and Sri Lankan web pages is to UK or US English. The first thing to do was to decide on what features to use that show the UK-US divide in terms of how they use English. I decided to use 4 features which were easily comparable. The US colour spelt C-O-L-O-R, the UK colour spelt C-O-L-O-U-R, the US centre spelt C-E-N-T-E-R, and the UK centre spelt C-E-N-T-R-E. This was because of their frequent use in my chosen region and how simple they were, that is, being basic nouns. The next thing to do was to decide on what feature values to use, that is, what statistics to analyse in order to produce an outcome for the research. I decided to look at the frequencies of each word, as well as calculate the ratio of UK to US spelling for each pair of comparable words in the form of a percentage. In order to test this, however, I needed a solid set of UK and US usages of these words. So I collected the frequencies and ratios of the same words from UK and US corpora too, and set it up for data mining. Here is an image of the UK-US data that I used. I also then compiled a similar file for my data from India, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. Now I had my data, I needed to run a decision procedure, or a test, to find out whether the sample data came back as UK or US English. To do this, I decided to take an average of each feature value in the UK-US sample data, and then use that number in the decision procedures as a benchmark for whether that particular set of data was UK or US English. But before I applied it to the India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka data, I would have to test the number out on the UK-US data to make sure it came back with a good accuracy rate so that it was worth using that specific test. I began with the frequency for the UK spelling of colour. I worked out the average of the feature values in the UK-US data, which meant the rule I would use was whether the frequency of UK colour was greater than or equal to 15. If it was, then I would classify the data as UK English. If not, it would be US English. The test on the UK-US dataset came back as 85%, which I thought was good enough to use. I then did the frequency for the UK spelling of centre. The rule I worked towards was whether the frequency of UK centre was greater than or equal to 12. Again, if it was, then I would label the data as UK English and US English if not. The UK-US dataset came back with a perfect 100% accuracy rate, so I had no problems with using this decision procedure. The final decision procedure I worked with was the frequency of the US spelling of centre compared to the opposite UK spelling, that is, a ratio. The rule I gathered was whether the frequency of US centre was less than or equal to 50. If it was less than or equal to 50, I would label the data as UK English and US English if not. Once again, the UK-US data came back with flawed accuracy, so I was confident of using this decision procedure. This screen shows a decision tree that I designed to show how the India data matched up. As you can see, all three tests showed India as a user of UK English. This screen shows another decision tree, but this time for Pakistan. However, the results show that the Pakistan corpus actually used less than 15 examples of UK colour, meaning it preferred US English in that example. However, the two remaining tests came back with a UK English preference. This screen for the Sri Lanka decision tree shows the same outcome as the India tree, therefore showing a preference for UK English as well. So from the results we can see that the dominant form of English in India is UK English. In Sri Lanka it's also UK English. However, Pakistan appears to be inconclusive. That is, the frequency of UK spelling colour is lower than the US spelling colour. Earlier, I decided to label Pakistan as US English based on the raw data. This was because there was a 65% ratio of US colour to UK colour, compared to the 63% ratio of UK centre to US centre. This meant that I went with the highest number when I assumed that Pakistan was US English. However, since it is only the frequency of US colour that appears as an anomaly, the majority of data shows that my region as a whole uses mainly UK English. The anomaly might provide evidence for both UK and US English being used though. Also, the India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka data doesn't show a clear difference between the UK and US English like the UK-US data does. That is, when looking at the centre percent, colour percent numbers. The limit with this research is how only 4 features were used when there is much more corporate of UK-US differences to be analysed, which would give more accurate findings. However, the data mining research has been useful. For example, I predicted that all 3 countries would use UK English, but the anomaly with Pakistan challenged my view and has left me wiser. This research therefore shows the value of text analytics. Thanks for watching.